Welcome to my channel, The Binge Eating Therapist. I'm Sarah, former binge eater turned psychotherapist, and today I want to talk to you about a really important concept in binge eating recovery. Quite often with binge eating, the binges seem to be happening even though you're not physically hungry, and that is the confusing part for people, it's the distressing part for people, and it can be incredibly frustrating. So in this video, I want to talk to you about the difference between hunger and appetite. Now, both these things deserve our utmost respect because they are very powerful forces. And when they're provoked, independently or together, they can take us over because they're so tied in with the survival drive. And there's a biological and a sociological and an emotional and a psychological influence on them. So they can seem quite complex to figure out when you're in that moment where you're having an urge to eat and you don't know whether it's because you haven't eaten enough food. The definition of hunger is a feeling of weakness or discomfort coupled with a desire for food. So it's very much this physical sensation that we might think of as not having eaten enough. Whereas appetite is a little bit more like desire. And there's a few different ways that we use the word, but the definition refers to a desire to satisfy a physical or mental need. The problem is, I think many of you think that if you're not hungry, you should be able to override your appetite if it's become active in the absence of hunger. This means you're not respecting the power that your appetite has, so we need a slightly different approach. I appreciate it's not always the easiest to tell the difference, but sometimes it does seem pretty obvious that it's not because we haven't eaten enough. So I've come up with an acronym for what to do when you feel like your appetite has been activated and you're pretty sure that it's not to do with physical hunger. So I am, as always, ridiculously proud of my acronyms. You guys think I'm so humble, but I'm so pleased with myself when I come up with one. And the acronym for this one is EARN. So a lot of the time in diet culture, they talk about earning your food. So I thought it'd be fun to change the meaning of how we use the word earn when it comes to making food decisions. So the E in earn is to inquire. So that means it's to get curious. There is a reason why your appetite has been activated. And that can be anything from actually not eating enough, to mental restriction, to planning to restrict, to emotional reasons, to food cues, to hormonal. I know when there's all these reasons, it can feel a little bit frustrating. But until we understand and accept that there's a reason for it, because for the longest time, I just thought I was broken and that I couldn't control myself around food. And when the story shifted to actually, I just seem to have this almost like hypersensitive appetite, which is getting overstimulated in certain circumstances, then I could do something about it. Please excuse the traffic noises. I've just got to New York and there's no quiet place to do this video. Start with the assumption that there is a reason why your appetite is active, and then try to find out what it might be. Because without knowing why, how are you supposed to figure out what to do? The same thing's just going to keep happening over and over again, which is probably where you're at, and it feels like Groundhog Day, right? The A in earn is to allow. So the problem with our appetite is that if you fight with it, it fights back. So the amount of times where, let's say I'd just eaten a meal, and I still had this really strong desire to keep eating, and I knew I wasn't hungry because I was so full, that would push me into a place of like panic and stress, and I'd feel like I'd already failed just because I wanted to keep eating, even though I was already full. So this feeling, this desire, this appetite, really allowing the sensation of that to be here because it's already here. It's like any emotion. When you fight with it or when you try to suppress it, it springs back up. It doesn't go anywhere. Quite often when it's allowed and acknowledged, then it can work its way through. So this is not about getting in a fight with your appetite whenever your appetite comes, but you're not hungry going, okay, I have to ride this out. But it's about moving towards that feeling. What does it feel like to want the food? Can it be okay for that feeling to arrive? Because in the panic, the stress and the resistance to the feeling, it just becomes more powerful. And the R in earn is to reassure. So I think that whether somebody recovers, the biggest component of whether someone is able to do that or not is self-talk. Because how we talk to ourselves about ourselves then dictates what we do. So you've got to have your own back here. And reassuring yourself that, okay, you have this urge to eat, you're not hungry, maybe you're already full. But the minute you start catastrophizing the outcome of whether you eat or not, you get into more of a battle with yourself. So the reassurance is, okay, it's all right to eat in response to my appetite, even if I'm not hungry. But I'm going to try and figure it out, and I'm going to try and do it in a calmer way, because that will help me figure it out, and that will actually lead to less out of control eating. The very bedrock of disordered eating is that what you eat, how you're eating, whether you're in control or out of control of food, then dictates how you feel about yourself. So if food's going really well, you feel great about yourself. You feel like you're getting it right. And if food is out of control, you feel like the worst person in the world. You see the extremes of this. We're just talking about how you're eating, yet it becomes about everything that you are. That's what disordered eating does. It's less about the behavior itself and more about the experience of yourself in how you eat. And the N in earn is negotiate. So this is a conflict, right? Your appetite wants food, has this desire for food, and the other part of you doesn't. It's battling and resisting that. If we took it as two separate people, if two people have differing views about something and they have to come to some kind of conclusion, and chances are there's going to be some compromise, having to listen to both sides of it. If the minute you want to eat but you believe you're not hungry, you panic and you think, I mustn't eat, or I have to go and eat everything, that's like the black and white all or nothing. The compromise and the negotiation, they're things like, one of the things that I did, I've shared this hundreds of times before probably, is that I would say to myself, okay, I can have this food. The only condition I'm putting on myself is that I stay present. I don't allow myself to go unconscious with this food because I don't like where I end up. Not because it's wrong, but because it's causing me pain to eat in that way. And you can't go into a negotiation if you've already decided ahead of time, before you've really inquired aloud and reassured yourself. You've already decided ahead of time, I'll do these things, so I mustn't eat. You're going to mess up the process. So these are all the similar principles that I talk about in a lot of my videos. We need to be curious. The minute you think you know why you have this problem and it's just because you're broken in some way, you shut down any other possibility. And the minute you think things shouldn't be the way they are, you shouldn't have this feeling, you shouldn't eat like this, you shouldn't feel like this, but you do, you're not allowing it. And that just creates more conflict and more chaos around food. And when you tell yourself that you don't deserve to speak to yourself nicely, you don't deserve reassurance, what you need is a kick up the arse, and that will get you into gear, and that will make you change. Really? Has that worked? You've got to start being nicer to yourself and to become more flexible, negotiate, to find that middle ground, which I tell you what, it's actually kind of boring in the middle ground. I'm not going to lie to you. I thought recovery was going to feel amazing, and it's kind of dull, but worth it. I don't want to put you off recovery. I think it's worth it anyway. And the freedom feels great. But once you've been free for a while, you don't even notice you're free anymore. And that, I think, is where the excitement goes. But worth it for the freedom. My goodness, this street is so noisy. Anyway, I'm going to go off and explore New York. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching. Hope it was useful. I'm always interested in your thoughts. Pop them in the comments below, and I will see you on the next video.